Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Tuesday, February 25th, Paczki Day. I'm Sven Gustafson.
I'm Cheyenne Nocerini.
And I'm Jer Stays. It's a pretty full studio today, and we also have a table full of Paczki, but we'll get to that later.
Also today, the mayor of Detroit says he wants half of recreational marijuana retail licenses to go to Detroit residents.
But first, let's talk trains.
The Freep has a deep dive story taking a look at passenger train travel via Amtrak in Michigan, and the news is decidedly mixed. Ridership on the three lines that operate in Michigan rose 2% in 2019 to just over 780,000. Yet Amtrak trains in Michigan posted on-time rates last year of just 43%, lowest in the country. They're even worse on the Wolverine. That's the busiest route between Pontiac and Chicago. Their on-time performance was just 33%. You should also know that Amtrak measures on time pretty generously, as anything up to 29 minutes past the scheduled arrival time.
The reason Amtrak trains are so late is that they have to share the tracks with freight trains, which force Amtrak trains to pull over to let them pass. Federal law is supposed to give passenger trains priority on the tracks. Amtrak is urging riders to contact their representatives in Congress and ask them to fix the problem. Congress is set to take up the latest 5-year funding renewal for Amtrak this spring. Overall, Amtrak ridership rose 2.5% last year to 32.5 million. We'll also put a link to the full Freep story on dailydetroit.com.
So, Jer, I have personal experience riding Amtrak to Chicago in recent years, and though I still maintain that in some ways it remains more desirable than driving to Chicago, which I hate driving in Chicago. The traffic there is literally apocalyptic.
I mean, if you think Detroit traffic is crazy, you know nothing about driving through downtown Chicago at rush hour. It is like grabbing the knuckles.
It's terrible. Riding Amtrak is nice. It's pleasant. You don't have to drive, and there's the snack car, and you can get a drink. You can kick back and read, whatever you want to do. It's not necessarily going to get you there any faster, unfortunately, than driving.
Well, I was looking up the advertised times, and it's 5 hours and 20 minutes, but
which is competitive, at least with driving.
It's competitive, but we all know that they're not hitting those timelines whatsoever.
Right. And the problem is, as this article states, that you, and I've experienced it many times, you pull over with no, warning. You just kind of pull over and stop, and you're sitting out there and you're in the middle of the country and you're like, what's going on here? Why are we stopped? And then 10 minutes later, a big long freight train rumbles by and, oh, okay, now we can move again.
Well, and we have a friend of the pod that has been working a job on the west side of the state, and they tried to use Amtrak to go between cities, to commute either once a day or, they might be out there for a couple of nights and then come home and try to take that evening train. Well, it would come by an hour late from Chicago, still midway to the state, and then show up even later. So they would never be home on time, and they would never be home on time to, send their kid to bed.
Sure.
It was just an absolute disappointing mess.
Yeah, and this is sort of embarrassing. I mean, it's 2020.
It's embarrassing on the global stage.
Absolutely. I mean, it's 2020. We're the United States of America, right? We're supposed to be the world's most advanced country, everything else. But yet China, Japan, European countries are eating our lunch in terms of rail travel. I mean, I was just in Minsk, right? And I talked about this, the subway system in Minsk, which was built in the 1980s by communist Russia, right? The Soviets built that system. And those subway trains are like clockwork, man. Like, it was scary how efficient they were and how easy it was to get around, because those trains, were every 2 or 3 minutes there was a new train.
And it's not like there weren't cars in Minsk. There were plenty. I saw the pictures. There are a lot. They love cars in Minsk.
Absolutely. It's not like people don't drive and everybody's forced to take trains. No, this is I think that's the problem. I mean, people say,
I think culturally we can't get around that this is an alternative.
People think that we're trying to destroy the edifice that is the Motor City, and we're here to delegitimize cars, and we're gonna demolish the foundations of the Motor City.
We're gonna take your Corvette.
We're interested in providing more ways than just the car for people to get around. If you haven't noticed, cars sit in traffic. Sometimes, there is no mobility with an automobile. Sometimes, twice a day, I would say. There's very limited mobility using a car. You can get places much faster certain times of the day and in certain trips on, a bus or on rail.
Well, like the friend of the show shared with us that, there's also the time that you get back. Instead of driving and having to focus from here, 3.5, 4 hours out or whatever, they could be on their computer. They could use Wi-Fi. They could be productive. It's doing things other than just having your hand glued to the wheel.
I was on the bus on the way down here to work this morning, down to the studio, and it was great just reading stories about the coronavirus. Nice light reading on the bus. But I mean, yes, your point is absolutely true. The other thing, you mentioned our friend who works on the west side of the state, fixing Amtrak travel and boosting speeds, and I'll come to that in a minute, would be great not only for people who want an alternative to car travel, but it would also be like a great economic catalyst for cities along the Amtrak route that could frankly use some economic help. I'm thinking of cities like Jackson or Battle Creek. I mean, if you've been on Amtrak and been through those downtowns, those are fairly like moribund places that could use a boost for sure. Now, I mentioned boosting speeds. Amtrak says it has upgraded a stretch of tracks, Amtrak tracks, that is, between roughly Dearborn and Kalamazoo. And I think and the goal is within a couple of years to get Amtrak train speeds up to 110 miles per hour, that's great. I mean,
that's great, but skeptical Jer is skeptical. I have heard these plans for more than a decade.
Yeah, they've been talking about this since way back in the American,
and they never get it done.
The stimulus back 10 years ago when we were coming out of the economic collapse.
Yeah, and they just don't get it done, and so that's the thing to me is like there has to be a real infrastructure focus. The current president in office promised a lot of infrastructure stuff that never happened. There were actually 50 different plans, 50 different high-value infrastructure things that were never executed on. And I think whichever party, whoever you're pushing for, look, we can't keep ignoring our infrastructure like we have the last 4. Frankly, since the stimulus, we've been ignoring our infrastructure. And even before then, that wasn't enough spending. We've got to put in the tools for people to succeed. And this is the kind of thing that does it. There's been a lot of controversy around Detroit as the city has put a temporary ban on recreational marijuana dispensaries through March 31st to create a plan on how to award the licenses. The Detroit News says that Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan will announce at the State of the City tonight that he wants half of the new dispensary licenses to go to Detroit residents. Currently, only 4 out of 40 medical marijuana licenses are held by Detroit residents. The concern is, and frankly, if you look at the data, it makes sense, that Detroiters could be shut out of the new businesses without some kind of controls. And with most cities in Michigan banning recreational dispensaries, Detroit is sure to be a hotspot for the industry. Sven, I know you were out in Ann Arbor the other day.
I was out in Ann Arbor the other day, which is a city that has opted into recreational marijuana dispensaries. There are now 3 or 4, I think, that are open and operating, and probably more in the pipeline, I'm sure. And there was a big line outside of one of them the other day, and I was talking to somebody who told me that they were told that they were going to wait at least 30 minutes before they could get called in to kind of the retail area of the dispensary. Which, look, suggests that there's a lot of demand out there, right? I mean, Ann Arbor is raking it in, these dispensaries that are open. And meanwhile, there are very few open in the entire Detroit area. I mean, we're a region of 4.5 million people. And I think maybe there's some in like River Rouge or something.
Waterford is one.
Yeah, and maybe at Macomb County, I think there's some to be open. I know that they're expecting Ferndale to start awarding some licenses. I think they've set aside a couple.
The state is far behind other states in the progress of getting revenue in with recreational marijuana as well because of the slow rollout. And frankly, I think it's more than 1,400 cities have opted out.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I was thinking about this the other day as I was driving around, and I passed one of what is many former medical marijuana dispensaries that are now closed because they, for whatever reason. I mean, going all the way back to the medical marijuana law, which was passed way back in 2008, I think, by voter initiative. It has been a really kind of convoluted rollout altogether, and
a mess. I think it's a mess.
Totally a mess. I mean, drive around Detroit and look at how many shuttered medical marijuana dispensaries there are. There are 40 now. I think at one time there were more than 100 if memory serves. Maybe not all of them, were destined to survive. I'm sure many of them for whatever one reason or another would have closed. But the point is that there's a lot of demand out there. Cities and the state probably has some culpability. We interviewed Denise Policella about her lawsuit on behalf of dispensary owners last week. They all deserve some blame here because this has just not been a smooth rollout at all.
Well, one of the things about this set aside, and I think personally, I actually think it's a good idea because
I do too.
It's important to get Detroit residents to be part of something like this. I look at it because this is going to be like tourism. People are coming here like tourists.
Yeah, for sure.
And I really think that when it comes to tourism economies, it's really important that locals benefit from it.
Well, and Detroit already has a medical marijuana industry. Why would they not, allow for recreational sales as well?
The thing is I like this in principle, but I also think the city is going to be in for some serious helping of these residents in order to get folks over the line. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, but
lack of job skills and things like that.
Job skills, access to capital. I mean, it costs a lot of money to do this. And frankly, accessing capital in the city of Detroit is a major problem. And so there should be a fund set up to do that.
Especially when you're, asking people to loan you money so that you can open up a marijuana dispensary, which is already it's legal here in Michigan and several other states.
Yeah, but you're still not getting a bank account.
Right, and it remains illegal on the federal level, so it, all kinds of complications there.
All right, to close out the show, I thought we'd do something fun. Cheyenne is here.
I am.
Cheyenne, after a hero's journey of looking for the Paczki or the Paczki.
Yes. I spent my morning waiting in line.
Because we didn't pre-order.
I did not pre-order.
Yeah,
and
lesson learned.
I kept kicking myself this morning when I was like, I kept saying, you need to pre-order, and then I didn't. And I was like, okay, well, I better go stand in line in New Palace.
And
you went straight to the source, Hamtrack, Michigan.
I did because somebody wanted prune.
And that somebody would be sitting across the table from us named Sven.
Yes. You're not even Polish.
Sounds like a real a-hole.
So I was like, I will go to the source. And I waited in line. And then I had to go pick up my kid.
So you failed.
I did not complete my challenge.
You weren't the only person with the idea of getting Paczki today, it seems.
Oh, gosh, no.
And after you picked up your kid, the line was still there.
Yes, the line was still there when I drove back by. And Martha Washington, also giant line. And I was like, oh, no.
All right. Well, you did come bearing a box of Paczki.
I did.
Where did it come from?
I did. It came from Family Donut Shop over on Kniff and
Your
Connet.
response is like making me so confident.
So I drove by it this morning and I was like, a donut shop. There's people in the parking lot and there's like a sign for Paczki. And I didn't even think about it because I was like, New Palace. Yeah. And then as I was leaving, skulking away with no Paczki in my hand, some guy ran out of the line and was like, are you looking for Paczki? There's a place.
Okay.
Over. So he was like, I stopped there on my way looking for Paczki bombs at Smalls.
Oh, yeah, the Paczki bombs. Now that is a tradition.
Yes.
I know that.
Not for me.
I mean, Whiskey in the Jar was hopping this morning, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, it was like 9 a.m. and people were drinking hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what you do in Hamtramck, though. Like drinking hard and Hamtramck are kind of synonymous nowadays.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. In New Orleans, they stage big, elaborate Mardi Gras parades. In Detroit,
we fill Paczkis with booze.
We eat Paczki and drink hard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they drink hard down in NOLA, too, but...
Oh, yeah.
But everything... Got to get all those vices in before Lent starts tomorrow. So,
well, and the great thing is I'm not Catholic, so vices galore. All right, so Sven's first.
Okay, and I, as you stated, I ordered the prune. That's the traditional flavor, right? So I don't know the Polish. It's not skull. It's
no.
Anyway, it's good. The filling is tastes the way it should. It's got good prune flavor. It's a slightly bready version of Paczki as opposed to like a more of a donutty, but it's good. Got a nice sugary glaze on it. I mean, it's definitely a Paczki.
Oh yeah. All right, Cheyenne. So you're what flavor are you?
So I was.
It looks like you killed someone over there.
I got cherry. I kind of had a last minute. What flavor am I going to get? I had everybody else's orders, and I was like, but what about me? And so at the last minute, I said, well, I'll try cherry. So here it is, cherry Paczki.
Well,
you're shrugging.
Are you satisfied?
I mean, it's a pretty good Paczki. I mean,
all right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Paczki.
All right.
Jared, what about you? What flavor did you go for?
I'm a raspberry man. Raspberry is my general favorite flavor. Raspberry and apple.
Did we get no custard?
I did get custard, but those are for my mom and Justin.
Got it.
All right. Because, you can only have like 1,000 calories at a time.
Right.
So true.
As you two kind of split yours, I just shove the whole thing in my mouth.
You like it?
Well, this is a way to eat a punchki.
Just shove it in your mouth.
I mean, this is what us fat guys do.
And you get pieces of glazed sugar on your beard, too.
It's because I'm a professional. There's a reason we look like the number 10 going down the street, Sven.
Mardi Gras, obviously, the greater significance is it kicks off Lent. So anybody giving anything up for Lent?
I haven't.
It's about sacrifice.
It is. I will say I do have a funny story about Lent.
Let's hear it.
10 years ago, I gave up jerky guys for Lent.
Oh, how'd that go?
Great, because 2 days later, I met my husband.
Oh, the little romance here on Daily Detroit.
Right? Sometimes you got to give up the vices.
And you've been married now for how long?
It'll be 8 years in April.
Fantastic.
Oh,
that's so sweet.
You two long-term married people.
I know. Look at us.
Well, I'm so glad that we could all do this together. I feel a little bit more fortified now.
It feels very meaningful to break punchki together.
It does.
It does. It does. I'm only sorry that engineer Randy is not here, but you did have Cherry, and that was his favorite.
I know. Maybe I was just channeling him.
There you go. Well,
happy punchki day, everybody. All right, ladies and germs, that's going to bring to close another episode of Daily Detroit. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to support what we're doing and help us buy more punchki, you can become a Patreon member. Just go to patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Add your name and pick whatever level of contribution you're comfortable with. We surely appreciate it.
It only costs you maybe 1-2 punchki a month. I mean, it's not very much, but it does make a huge difference. Thank you so much. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Until next time, take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.